When you first start to study your exam pieces, it is important to explore them thoroughly. This will help you to become familiar with the characteristics of the composer's style, and so lead to a deeper understanding of the piece and a more mature interpretation. Some examination boards also set a viva voce, where you'll be asked questions on your pieces, and so it will provide invaluable help in preparing for this. If you can find more than one edition of your pieces, compare them, noting any differences in phrasing, expression and ornamentation. Find out, if possible, which markings are those of the composer, since you may wish to experiment and change, with the help of your teacher, any of those given by an editor, provided the solution is in character with the piece. The date of its composition may be indicated in the edition. If you cannot find out when it was composed, make sure that at least you know when the composer was alive, his nationality, and who any of his contemporaries were. The piece may have been originally written for an early keyboard instrument, such as a harpsichord, in which case, if you're not familiar with the sound, listen to recordings of harpsichord playing. You may even be able to find a recording of your piece played on this instrument. It may be part of a set of pieces, or a larger work, such as a sonata or suite. If it is part of a bigger work, listen to the whole piece, or better still, if possible, learn the whole piece. In order to explore the piece comprehensively, here is a checklist of aspects to consider. Make sure you have a pencil and a music dictionary to hand. The title can be an important clue to interpreting the piece. It may be descriptive of a form, such as a theme and variations or sonata. It may indicate a dance, such as a minuet. Or it may be descriptive, such as the Evening Bell by Granados. Check if your piece begins with a treble and bass clef, and for any changes of clef. Check for any repeat signs, da capo or dal segno signs. In examinations, you will not normally be expected to play repeats, but dal segnos and da capos are required. There may be signs in the music to ask you to play a passage an octave lower or higher. Check the time signature at the beginning and make sure you understand what kind of time the piece is in. For example, simple triple, or compound duple. Check also for any changes of time signature. Check for any recurring rhythms. Most pieces will feature some sort of rhythmic repetition. In this air by Purcell, the rhythm of the opening bar is repeated throughout. Check for ties, particularly when one note of a chord is tied. And look for pause signs. Check also for any syncopation. This piece by Beethoven makes a feature of it. The nature of the rhythm will also determine how you are going to count. Bear in mind the kinds of notes in the piece. In the opening of the Sonata Pathétique by Beethoven, for example, some very small time values are used, and it will be easier to count quavers for this section rather than crotchets. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and. Check the tempo marking at the beginning, making sure you understand what it means. There may also be a metronome mark given. This will be there for guidance only and need not be strictly adhered to, but the character of the piece will be affected if you play it at a vastly different tempo. Check also for any changes of tempo. Check carefully what key the piece is in, and for any changes of key signature. Check how the melodies are constructed. For example, the theme at the beginning of this Mozart sonata is based on falling scale patterns. Later it changes to a broken chord pattern. And then becomes more chromatic in character. Check for any melodic sequences, where a melody is repeated at a different pitch. Here is an example from the same sonata movement. And check where melodies are repeated, noting any similarities and differences. Look also for where parts of a melody are repeated at the same or different pitch, often known as motives. Check the nature of the harmony, for example, whether it is traditional or modern. And check if the piece modulates, marking in the main keys the music passes through above the treble stave. This air by Purcell modulates to F major in the second half. Mark in the principal cadences under the bass stave, for example 5-1 for a perfect cadence. Look also at the way the melody and harmony are distributed. The texture may be a melody and accompaniment, chordal or contrapuntal, and a mixture may be used in one piece. This nocturne by Chopin begins with a melody and accompaniment. But later becomes chordal. Many Baroque pieces are contrapuntal, where two or more melodies are combined. Check the form of the piece. You may be able to label it as a traditional form. If it is the first movement of a classical sonata, it may be divided up into an exposition, development and recapitulation. Short Baroque and classical pieces are often binary or ternary. This air by Purcell is in binary form, and you can mark the form in the piece. Mark in phrases using a small stroke to differentiate between phrases and slurs. Check also their length. In this example, they are all 4 bars long. Check the dynamic markings given, noting the range used throughout the piece. Check also the kinds of articulation used, for example slurs, staccato, and accents. Check if there is any ornamentation indicated and what kinds are used. In the opening of this chaconne by Handel, for example, a mordent, trill, and a poggiatura are indicated. Be prepared to write out on manuscript paper or in the copy ornaments in full as they will be played. Remember also that if playing the ornaments as suggested by the editor causes the music to halt, it is better to simplify it by, for example, playing fewer notes in a trill. An ornament must enhance the music and spring naturally from the melody. As a last resort, an ornament may be omitted, particularly in the early grades, but this will affect the character of a piece and be less acceptable in an examination. Check any pedal indications given in the copy. By now you will have a clear idea of the kind of piece to be practiced. For example, whether it is dance-like or descriptive, or the mood is happy or sad, and be aware of the kinds of problems to be solved in learning it.